All right, boils and ghouls. So I don't know what it is. I've been in a Japanese horror mood for like 2 weeks. I feel like I've heard and spoken Japanese more the last 2 weeks than English. But this is one that I threw up on the community tab against Pulse Cairo from, I always forget the year with that, 2001, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. This one blew it out of the water, and this is the reason I kept this movie off the poll from like a week ago, where Hair Extensions X Day won, because I knew this would blow them all out of the water because it's the most popular. Now, this is directed by Takashi Shimizu, and I think this movie's directed excellently. He's a very good director that I haven't seen any other movies by him outside of his Grudge films, like the Grudge 2, I'm pretty sure he directed that one also. And this is a very confusing series for people who don't know. Same with Ringu. Ringu is a masterpiece for me. That's a top film of mine from '98. But that's not the first Ringu film. There's actually two that were TV films or direct to video that preceded it by like a year or two. And Ringu's also based off the novel. And same with this movie. And all the prior entries in this before this film, pretty sure, yeah, were directed by Shimizu. And he had two shorts called, I'm going to fuck this up, always with Japanese stuff, Kamiyaki or something. It's not that. Katasumi. Then the other one is 4444, just a bunch of fours. And I've never seen them, but I'm pretty sure that he used ideas from those shorts in Juon the Curse, which was the first film. Then we had Juon the Curse 2. So we had those two films after the initial two shorts before we get to this film, chronologically in the release of the entries in this franchise. So I don't remember seeing the two Curse films, but I'm pretty sure a lot of the stuff in that got recycled into Juon the Grudge here. Everyone should know the American remake, at least. I mean, if you haven't seen, I can't say the original, but the original Juon the Grudge. If you haven't seen it, most people have seen The Grudge, the American version with Sarah Michelle Gellar. I never really cared for the American remake. I still don't, even though it does follow this version here very, very faithfully, for the most part that I remember. And I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, that the child actor who plays Toshio, the creepy-ass kid in this movie, and the actress who plays Kayako both reprised their roles in the American remake. I'm like 99.9% sure on that, so let me know if I'm incorrect. But this movie is, I wouldn't say it's a masterpiece, but it's an excellent Japanese horror film. I mean, this usually makes most people's top 10 lists of Japanese horror. And there's two things that this movie really has going for it. One is the atmosphere. The atmosphere throughout this movie is fucking excellent. Creepy, eerie throughout all of it. And the best part about this movie, I think, is the scares and the visual imagery in it. All the scares from Toshio and Kayako. This movie's all over the place too. That's another thing. It's not told in chronological order, so everything is just kind of little vignettes, like of different stories that take place in this house, where this guy ended up killing his wife Kayako, their cat, and their son Toshio, which then made Kayako become a ghost, a vengeful spirit who haunts anybody who lives in this house afterwards. So after the very beginning scene, which is brief, where those murders take place, then we just see a bunch of separate yet connected through the house stories and scenes play out of various different families and people that go and live in this house and end up fucking getting killed. Let's talk Juon the Grudge from 2002. Before we jump into the movie, fun fact, the director Takashi Shimizu was a student of the great Japanese director Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who directed Pulse from 2001. It was 2001. And his film Cure, if you haven't seen the film Cure from 97 by Kurosawa, definitely check that movie out. That's a great film. All right, so quick question, fast answer from you guys. Who do you prefer? Who's better? Kayako from the Grudge series or Sadako from Ringu? The answer is Sadako from Ringu. And like always, with all Japanese films, I ain't pronouncing these names, so this movie stars a bunch of Japanese people. Probably won't get a lot of the names of the characters, too. You guys are lucky you got as many names as you got in X-Day hair extensions. So yeah, the intro is very brief and black and white, which is a cool touch. And we see Takeo end up killing his wife, Kayako, the cat, and the son Toshio, because he found out that she was in love with another man. And from her being murdered, it created, what is it called? Is it an onryo? Or something like that in Japanese folklore, which is basically what this is based off of. A vengeful spirit who dies in such a tragic or brutal way that a grudge is created, a curse is created, and they don't rest until their spirit's at rest. They have a grudge against humanity and for everything that happened to them. Another positive, too, off the bat here, the cinematography in this movie is great. This is such a gorgeous looking movie. And the setting of the house is such an iconic horror setting. And I love how this movie immediately jumps into that eerie atmosphere. We have Rika, who is a social worker, and ends up going to the house. This is a few years, I think, after. They don't say how long, but assumably a few years after the murder of Kayako and Toshio and the cat. He killed himself, too, after killing them, the father. I forget his name already. But when Rika first enters the house, and then you see the old woman that the family's caring for, I think it's the mother of the husband who lives there, and she's scraping on the door. That's creepy already, and it already sets up that eerie atmosphere that flows throughout this entire film. So she obviously is like, what the hell's going on here? Opens the door and she starts trying to care for this woman. She doesn't know where she is or anything, this lady. So Rika ends up hearing a noise upstairs after she cleans up after the old woman, cleans her piss off the floor. For people who do that, and like in healthcare and nurses, my hat goes off to you, because I just couldn't do it. Cleaning up people's piss. But whatever, it has nothing to do with anything. She goes upstairs and she hears scratching and noises coming out of the closet. And the closet is all taped up. So she untapes it. She opens the closet. And then there's the cat in there. And then great scare right here, where she picks the cat up and she says, come on, let's go. And then right where the cat was is the boy, Toshio, and scares the shit out of her. So she ends up going downstairs trying to get answers out of Saki, that's how it's spelled. So I'm guessing that's how you say the old woman's name. So she gives no answers. And then she ends up going back upstairs, and we get that great shot of Toshio holding the bars, the rails of the stairs, and she asks, what's your name? He says, Toshio, exactly like that. I mean, exact, but close. And she ends up running back to the old woman to try to get some more answers. I don't know why, because she hasn't given her shit so far. Then we get this creepy scene that's done so much better in this movie than the CGI that's used in the American remake, when we see Kayako's ghost kill the old woman. Yeah, that looks great. I remember in the remake, it's like a floating ghost and stuff, and the hair's floating. So much better in this. It just looks like a dark-haired woman, but then you get this great close-up shot on her face, which is all black except for her eyes, and Rika ends up passing out, and Toshio is right behind her unconscious body. Then it goes to the next segment, if you will. But two more things to praise about this movie. The sound design. The sound design in this movie is excellent. I'm not going to try. The death rattle sound that Kayako makes, That is so creepy, man. I can't do it. But that sound, great. And then with Toshio, when he takes on part of the cat's essence, I guess, and that's why he meowed. I'm not going to try that either. But the cat sounds and meowing that comes out of Toshio throughout this movie, so creepy. And not just the sound design, but also the lack of sound throughout this movie. There's a lot of deliberately slow-paced scenes where it's pretty much silent, except for like very minimal score, sometimes not even that. And the score is very, very good in this too. But both the quietness of this movie and the lack of sound, and then the way that they use sound, all of that's excellent. So they actually give like titles to each of the little sequences in this movie. That first one was called Rika, obviously. And now we have Katsuya is the next segment. Yeah, so this is another time jump. These events that we see going forward take place before what we just saw with Rika and the mother, because she gets killed by Kayako in the last scene. Now we see her alive again, because this is before that event. And Katsuya is the husband living in the house, and Kazumi is the wife. And the only reason I remember that is because he screams, "Kazumi! Kazumi!" like 18 times in a little bit when she goes in that trance. So Kazumi is left home alone with her mother-in-law. The other husband goes to work. I was going to try to remember his name, but that ship long sailed. And she starts hearing running around upstairs. And at first she thinks it's the mom. I don't know why she thinks that. This woman's a total invalid. And then she hears the noise again. And great shot where she looks into the hallway, like in this direction she's looking. And then behind her, you see Toshio up on the stairs for a split second. And then he disappears onto the stairs as she turns around. Nothing's there. That's cool. Then she goes up the stairs and we see the cat. And then the cat meows and jumps up the stairs. A lot of suspense built, and it just keeps on building. Kazumi ends up getting attacked by Toshio, and then Katsuya, he comes home and finds her in this trance. And great shots. Toshio running behind him really fast. He turns around, nothing's there. Then he starts going over to Kazumi and says, "I'll call an ambulance." And very, again, deliberately paced so that it really builds to these scares. Then he hears a sound. Then Toshio rises from behind the bed and lets out the cat screech. Then Katsuya ends up getting possessed. And then his sister shows up. And his sister's talking with also her mom. And then she hears noises from upstairs. And I like how we see Katsuya as he's under the influence, possessed. We see him upstairs dragging and carrying Kazumi's body into another room, so his sister doesn't find her. So this is interesting. Katsuya's possessed. The sister comes home. He moves the body. Then we get a little bit of exposition and backstory here, which I'm guessing this is the truth, because he's speaking like the husband of Kayako, who killed her and Toshio and the cat. And he's saying that she was in love with another man. That's not my son. That's not my son. So I take that as Toshio was not his son. It was the son of Kayako's lover, right? Like, that's pretty much the only way to take that. And then she ends up getting the shit scared out of her, the sister. And he's able to fight the curse off a bit, not harm her. He basically just kicks her out of the house, says, "I need to be alone, get out." And then, great shot. He goes up the stairs, and then you see on the pane glass window that's upstairs, you see Kayako's like image emerge into the glass, and you can see her. All of that looks cool. And the design of both of them, of Kayako and Toshio, with the gray, almost blue at times skin, great design choice too. And he ends up just going upstairs, and that's the end of this segment. Again, quote unquote. Next one is titled Hitomi. So Hitomi is Katsuya's sister that just stopped by the house and he threw her out. So now she goes to her job. And again, I can't praise the atmosphere enough in this movie, where she's walking through the hallway and it's quiet as can be. And she goes into the bathroom and tries calling her brother. And you hear the death rattle sound, creepy as hell, coming out of the phone. She hangs up. Then the shot of Kayako's ghost with just the black hair creeping out of one of the stalls and scares the hell out of her. She ends up running out of the bathroom. That looks awesome. But that's something I wonder. I thought they were confined to the house. You know, Kayako's ghost and Toshio. But she follows the sister here to her job. Then she follows her home, where we get that excellent scene and great scare where she goes under the covers. Then she hears the death rattle and she lifts the covers up a bit, and Kayako's ghost is right there and just sucks her under the blankets, and then she just disappears. And the great score that like ding 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 ding. Awesome, iconic scene. But I guess maybe it's explained by the fact that the ghosts kind of bind themselves to the people who live in the house, so they can follow around people who have been in that house and were exposed to the grudge and the curse there. So I guess it makes sense. Oh, that's right. Before the bed scene, there's another iconic scene and few shots in this. After the security guard, she tells in her building that she saw somebody in the bathroom when Kayako, creepily came out of a stall. So the security guard goes and checks it out, and he's in the hallway. She sees on the security footage just like a black mist of a ghost appear, and he gets killed. We don't see it. And then we get that great scene when she gets in the elevator, and it keeps going, and as it goes, like every floor, you see Toshio, the kid's ghost, getting closer and closer to the glass. That's shot very, very well. So then on to the next segment called Toyama. And now we're back to Rika's story. I think it's her boss comes to the house and finds the old woman dead and finds Rika unconscious in the corner. Then they call the detectives. Detectives flood the house, and they hear a phone ringing from upstairs in the attic. And they go up there, and they find the bodies of Kazumi and Katsuya, what the fuck ever. Okay, so the detectives are putting everything together, and they do disclose it's been 5 years since Toshio went missing. So when the family was killed by Takeo, the father. And they end up telling Rika this, and she doesn't believe it because she says she saw the boy, Toshio, at the house. So the detectives end up going to an ex-detective, Toyama, and he used to be involved with the whole case involving Kayako, all these goddamn names, and the family getting killed by Takeo, then him dying. So they approach him, and he has a young daughter named Izumi. I'm pretty sure I remember we see flash forward, and we see her as a teenager a little bit. So then they find Rika's boss's body, so he's done. And then great scene when Toyama, the ex-detective, is watching the security camera footage of where the ghost appeared and killed the security guard before swallowing the sister alive in the bed. And creepy as hell how you just see the ghost walking the hallway close to the camera, then her head just raises right in front of the camera and her eyes are just staring at him. That looks really cool. Then another great shot when Rika's laying in her bed and Toshio's sitting on the edge of the bed, and then Kayako just like creeps overhead and like looking down at her. Really cool shots too. Then Toyama goes to the house and he plans on burning this place to the ground. But he don't get a chance to. He ends up... Now, this is a weird scene because we saw his daughter Izumi, and she was a little kid. So he's in the house going to burn it down, Toyama, and he hears these teenage girls up in the bedroom. And then he sees, I'm guessing it's a vision of the future, right? That's the only thing I could take from it. He sees his daughter Izumi come down the stairs, but she's a teenager. And she just looks at him and then she walks out. So this has got to be, the ghosts here just fucking with his mind. Then he goes up the stairs and there's this 3 schoolgirls in the room. Then they see something off camera and they scream, disappear, they get eaten or whatever happens to them. And then great creepy shots of Kayako crawling on the ground and crawling down the stairs as the other 2 detectives get there to try to help Toyama because he's freaking out. And he ends up running away, and the clicking sounds, the death rattle, and everything from Kayako is so creepy, and she ends up killing the 2 detectives. Then we go into our next chapter, which is Izumi. Now this obviously jumps forward a decent amount, but Izumi ends up seeing a missing poster for the 3 friends of hers that was in the house in that vision that Toyama had. So she ends up coming home. Toyama's so deeply disturbed by everything that he saw in that house. He's just like a recluse. And you hear on the news that a woman's body was found, and it's Rika. So they do this, then I think they go back and show what happened to Rika. Because they said there was no bruises on her body. She was found in this house, empty house, and that's all we know so far. But Izumi is now a teenager. Toyama, her father, is a shut-in. And then I think he gets murdered too, right? Everybody does in this movie. So Izumi is extremely guilt-ridden over leaving her friends that got killed by Kayako in the house. And 2 other friends of hers come over and they ask what happened. And she said that they heard that there was a haunted house, and they went there, and she was too afraid to do anything, so she left, and now she's so paranoid that her friends are out to get her. And then we get some more great scares. When the friends come over, she has her windows taped up and, paper all over it so that the people can't look in, her dead friends, but then she ends up looking through one of the holes, and then you see the faces of her 3 dead friends, and then they start chasing her through the house slowly, and then we get the great scene where Kayako comes out from behind, I don't know, it's like a closet, comes out from behind Izumi, and grabs her and just brings her up into the closet. That's a great scene, too. And then the 3 dead friends kind of just, I don't know what happens to them. They just kind of walk towards the closet, and then we go to the next segment, titled, appropriately, Kayako. Yeah, now we're back to Rika, and we get that great scene in the shower when she's going like this, and then she feels, and you see the gray hand. It's another iconic shot from this movie. This movie has a lot of really famous scenes, and I attribute it more to the remake, because a lot more people saw the remake, but I think everything is done much better in this movie. And she has her friend Mariko, who's a teacher, and one of the students that's on her roster in her class is Toshio. And she ends up going to the house to try to find Toshio. And Rika realizes this and tries to save her by running to the house. And I love when the 2 of them are eating and Rika feels something under the table and she lifts up the tablecloth and Toshio is just cradled down there. That's creepy too. And I forgot all about this scene. I don't know if it's a dream sequence or if her reality is just being messed with, but Rika's sleeping. Then all of a sudden she hears the cat meow. And then there's 24 cats in her room. Black cats all over the place. And then next thing you know, it's morning and she's getting out of the bed. So again, I don't know if it's a dream and it's just, all of this is seeped into her subconscious so deeply, or if it's just the ghosts fucking with her. There's so many background images and scares in this movie. blink and you'll miss it type shots. Because right after that, she gets up, she walks for like a split second, and you see Toshio's ghost like sitting in the corner, and then he's gone. A lot of those blink and you miss 'em moments, which adds a lot to the rewatchability with this movie. Yeah, man, this house is so fucking creepy throughout all of this. But Rika ends up racing over to help Mariko. She's too late. She opens the closet, and you just see Mariko getting pulled up into the closet by Kayako. And then, again, the sound design of Kayako, her bones and stuff, like, cracking as she walks in the attic and, like, crawls towards her. And Rika falls down. She runs downstairs, and then she looks in the mirror, and she starts to see like herself turn into Kayako a little bit. Then Kayako's hair and her head comes out of her stomach for a split second, and then like she goes like this and she's gone. And then great ending, even though I don't understand some of it. But I think this is like the only blood really that we see in this movie. Rika's at the bottom of the stairs, and Kayako starts crawling down in her eerie ass way, and she's covered in blood. And then she gets close to Rika. Then we see a bunch of flashbacks, like to certain scenes, and Kayako looks like Rika. So is there a connection between the two of them, or has she been under this curse for so long that she was killing some of the people and it wasn't Kayako? I don't know. Somebody give me an answer to that, because I don't know what all those flashbacks are supposed to mean with Kayako looking like Rika. But then Takeo, the husband who killed the family, he ends up showing up and he kills Rika. Then we see the streets of Tokyo, and there is no one around, and there's missing people posters everywhere. So, I mean, man, this Grudge really reached out long and hard and took out a lot of people. Then we just close with Rika's corpse in the attic of the house. And then she has long hair like Kayako. And then she has the little fucking sound. And then her eyes snap open and it ends. Excellent, excellent movie. I mean, the scares are just so abundant in this film. And they're all done so well. All the visual imagery, the score, the sound design, everything. This is an excellent, excellent film. So, if you guys haven't seen Juon the Grudge and have only seen the American remake, definitely watch the original when you get a chance. But that's Juon the Grudge from 2002. I don't remember The Grudge 2. I don't remember what happens in that, or if it continues from here, or because this movie's confusing as shit as it is, with the jumping back and forth and everything. So I forget what they do in The Grudge 2. Probably not going to be doing that one anytime soon. This is going to probably be the last Japanese horror for the rest of the month, or for a while, because I definitely want to focus on more holiday and Christmas horror films. But alright, everybody. Hope everyone's having a great morning, afternoon, or night. I will talk to you soon. Take care, guys.